I got a text last night from Joe Ellis after I'd gone to bed, so I didn't see it until early this morning. Do you remember her? I'll be discharged in 30 days, it said. Let me go back 1 month. This is an NBC account, just to remind everyone who is Joe Ellis. A transgender military pilot posted a proof of life video Friday to refute rumors spread on social media that she was flying the helicopter that collided with a commercial jet near Reagan National Airport on Wednesday night, killing 67 people. Quote, I understand some people have associated me with the crash in D.C., and that is false, said Joe Ellis, a Black Hawk pilot with the Virginia Army National Guard, in a Facebook video. It's insulting to the families to try to tie this to some sort of political agenda. They don't deserve that. I don't deserve this. And I hope that you all know that I am alive and well, and this should be sufficient for you to end all the rumors. Several hours prior to the posting of the video, Ellis shared a screenshot on her Facebook account of an X post in which someone had shared 2 images of her and made the false claim that she was the Black Hawk pilot involved in the deadly crash. Further along in the NBC story, it recounts how just that week she'd been a guest of mine here on this program, having written an essay for Smerconish.com about her life as a transgender service member. And so some malicious person, then put 2 and 2 together and tried to tie her to the catastrophic events in Washington, D.C. And by the way, not the only time that this sort of thing has happened. According to the NBC story, similar false or unconfirmed claims spread after at least 4 shootings in the last 2 years. Nashville, Tennessee, Philadelphia, Madison, Wisconsin, and Des Moines, Iowa, that the shooters were transgender or LGBTQ and that their identities had something to do with the crimes. So let's all be on notice that, God forbid, when the next catastrophic event takes place and there's a report out there and they say, oh, it was a trans person, remember the case of Joe Ellis and the others. So, headline from USA Today, the Pentagon released its new policy on Wednesday for transgender troops to serve in the military, which requires them to demonstrate that they have never attempted to transition to any sex other than their own. The Defense Department policy memo says that individuals who have a current diagnosis or history of or exhibit symptoms consistent with gender dysphoria are no longer eligible for military service. This is Joe Ellis. Joe, welcome back. I hope you're doing well, notwithstanding all the events. Unfortunately, every time we speak, it seems like there's another setback along these lines. How did you hear this news that now a memo had come out?
Thank you so much for having me, Michael. I heard this news I am in a group, Sparta, which is a advocacy group of currently serving transgender service members. And they put out typically any of the stuff that comes out as soon as, they find out about it. And so I was in a group chat and saw the memo posted. It was actually posted on behalf of a GLAD lawsuit that is currently in progress, suing over the executive order that came out about a month ago. And so that's how I learned of it before any of the media had really gotten a hold of it. And the first thing I thought was, well, I need to send this to Michael, because if anyone who's got a legal brain can tear this apart, then that would be you.
You're too kind. So you have continued to serve in the Virginia Army National Guard.
I have.
And with any limitations because of this whole issue, and to tell everybody what it is you do for the National Guard, how often you do it, and whether you'll be doing it in the near future because of this memo.
Sure. I have what they call drill or military duty this weekend. We do it about once a month and 2 weeks out of the year. I'm actually slotted to deploy in the next 12 months. And right now, it takes about 18 months to train a Black Hawk pilot. And that's initial training. That's not even mission readiness training. So now, not only is my job at risk of being a Black Hawk pilot, but now there's a deployment that's going to be missing a pilot if this goes through, if this doesn't get stopped in courts. And there's not enough time to train a replacement for me. So this is affecting military readiness of things that are already planned to happen, counting on me to be there.
Joe, can we remind everybody? I don't want to take for granted that they were with us when you were last a guest. Your service in the Virginia National Guard has taken you on deployments where and in what context?
Yes, so I've deployed under federal deployments to Iraq in 2011. I was a helicopter mechanic, and then I doubled duty as a door gunner, flying combat missions, earning the Air Medal, which is the equivalent of the Bronze Star for aviation. And then I also have deployed in a reserve capacity to Guatemala for a training and support mission overseas there. And then also did a rotation in Kuwait as a maintenance battalion, working on all airframes in other theaters of operations. So they would fly those back to us in Kuwait. We would tear them apart, fix them, put them back together. And then in 2021, I went to flight school. I was accepted through the application process to become a pilot. Did my 18 months of flight training, came back to my state and served in my state for about a year, um, doing all of the progression and meeting all the standards as a pilot before I came out to my unit and started the transition process.
And how has been the reception from your unit?
Overwhelming support. My unit wants to keep me because it's state guard and there's only so many aviation units. We are the only aviation unit in the state of Virginia for the state guard. So I've served in the same battalion my entire career. So I have 15 years of history with the same organization, whereas active duty, they move every 2 to 3 years. I've served with the same people. Like my platoon leaders and sergeants are now my battalion commanders and my colonels, and I'm with the same cohort of people that I came in with in 2009. And so that reputation persists, and they want to keep me as long as they can keep me. Um, I have their full support. Obviously, their hands are tied with DoD policy.
I've not had the opportunity because I've been on air since receiving the policy, the memorandum for senior Pentagon leadership. I imagine that you've had at least the opportunity to peruse it. What's the takeaway from your perspective? What stands out, if anything?
What stands out to me, Michael, is in 2017, a ban took effect that grandfathered everyone in that had already been diagnosed with gender dysphoria. They were able to continue serving in their new gender markers, which is the designation you receive, and that defines what facilities you use and uniforms. The issue with this new policy is that it's what we're calling a purge. There is really no grandfather clause. There is a couple obscure waiver processes, but that's only if you have been stable for 36 months and your sex. And the way it describes sex is assigned at birth. So I'm not sure how a transgender soldier could have been stable in their sex for consecutive of 36 months if they are out publicly as a transgender person, because in order to do that, you would transition. So you wouldn't be in your sex assigned at birth. So it kind of doesn't give you a lot of options to stay in. From what I can tell, there's really no option unless you have a very unique job and you're willing to detransition, which means stop taking hormones, in my case, cut my hair and use the male bathrooms and all of that stuff, which some of that would be fine. Like I would be okay continuing to serve if they said I needed to use male bathrooms or male barracks, but the whole you must detransition and erasure of transgender service members is the issue.
To what extent, if any, has the government footed the tab for your transition?
None whatsoever. So I pay out of pocket as a National Guard member. I don't have access to some of the active duty options, and even those options require a lot of doctor's notes and waivers and 18-month waiting lists to get any kind of transgender care. For myself, that was going to take too long, and I wanted to be mission capable immediately. I wanted to get back into the fight. So I went out on the economy, and I paid for all of my gender affirming care on my own.
And to what extent have you transitioned? I'm not quite sure how to ask that question. It's
Yeah.
awkward, but hopefully you know what I'm asking.
Sure. So I take hormone therapy. So I just take estrogen, which is a tablet. It's very similar to what's prescribed to cis women or biological women, however you want to define that. as they age, they need to supplement with estrogen, and that's all I take is tablets. And just like any other medicine in the army, you can deploy with 12 months of that in your pocket. Like it's not really a big deal to go anywhere in austere conditions with that. And even if I weren't able to access it, it's not detrimental if I were to have to stop taking it for periods of time, because I have not had what they call reassignment surgery, or bottom surgery. The only other things I've done are cosmetics. I've done a face surgery, which cost about $60,000, and I paid out of
Wow.
pocket for that.
Have bathrooms been a point of contention since your transition? Have there been any incidents, any problem? How do you handle that? Congresswoman Nancy Mace has been on the warpath in the Congress about this.
I am uncomfortable using bathrooms, especially I don't want to make other people uncomfortable, and that's where I try to time it where no, maybe nobody's in there. I've never had an issue, and in aviation, it's not many women, so most of the bathrooms are empty that are for females. If anyone ever were to say I'm making them uncomfortable, I would leave. I would not demand their space or compel their speech. That's really not who I am. I want to make everyone comfortable, and I want to serve my country as a patriot.
Is that possible in a deployment scenario? In other words, now that you've transitioned, reflect on your own military career, put yourself back in Iraq, as by
Yeah.
the way, a gunner. Correct me if I'm wrong. Would you have been able to perform those services, and could you do that again in the future?
Of course. Yeah, no problem. And even with bathrooms, like most of them are single-use porta potties, at least in all the deployments I've been on. There aren't any shared bathrooms because of how those environments are set up. And in the living space, in SEER school, which is a 3-week training in Alabama, you are co-ed in the same living spaces, using the same bathrooms. So there are environments where soldiers do share those spaces. I'm not using that as a justification to where I should always have access to certain spaces, but it is possible if you just respect each other like you're supposed to as brothers and sisters in the military.
This is Joe Ellis. She will be discharged in 30 days from the U.S. military. So, this Saturday, 2 days from now, are you going to show up?
Yeah. I have been thinking about that a lot this morning. Um, I feel a little like there's a cloud over me, but I also feel like it's my duty. The warrior ethos of the army is I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit, and I'll never leave a fallen comrade. And those are supposed to be how army soldiers live their lives. And so while I would like to just not have to go to drill and not have to face people that do support me, but with the circumstances, it's overwhelming, I also feel like it's my duty to show up until they won't let me.
In other words, you don't want to put your colleagues in an awkward position where you show up and now they're not certain whether to include you in the drills.
I mean, they're always gonna include me and support me. I just don't know. Like, obviously, it's impactful to me. Like, how do I put on the game face and go in and be a leader as an officer when this just happened? But I will do that. As that's my job, and I will do it until I'm no longer allowed.
Joe, remind us, how many years of service do you have in with the Virginia National Guard?
I have 15 years of service, Michael, and that puts me just shy 2 years and I think 3 months of an early retirement option in this memo that came out. Um, I haven't been paid my bonus that's 3 years overdue. It's supposed to be $20,000. I have not received yet, which means if I get separated, I'm definitely not going to get it. And that's just because of a typical bureaucracy admin error that I didn't get that bonus. They're saying if someone does get separated involuntarily, as in they wait until they're forced out, that they could recoup bonuses and take that money back. It just seems like they're not honoring their side of the contract. And I've served 15 years honorably with distinction, no issues, and have always been mission ready when they called me and asked me.
You anticipated my next question, which was, what are the financial repercussions of all of this to you? Are there any more than you've just described?
So I do obviously make money when I'm on drill. It's like a prorated time, so there is some loss of income. I do use the military's TRICARE premium option, which is if you're a reserve or a guard member, you can pay $200 a month and cover your whole family. So I will lose my medical insurance as well as, the term life insurance that soldiers get, and some other options. Active duty is going to be hit way harder. These are families that maybe depend on that service member for not only their entire livelihood, but their medical, their kids' ability to get care. A lot of things are on the line for them. I'm fortunate that I'm part-time and I have a career outside, but other folks are going to get hit really hard. They're going to have to look for jobs.
Is there any other aspect of this, Joe, that you think we need to know?
I think that in my circumstance, I was told I could come out, I could transition, I could continue my service. So I took that option. And now I'm being told because of that, I'm no longer eligible. And I just don't understand how that makes sense. It feels like bait and switch. It feels like entrapment. Like some people, maybe even myself, maybe we wouldn't have come out. We were told it was okay and we could continue service, so we did. And now you're telling us that makes us ineligible. And it also, you're saying it makes us uh, not align with military values, which is just strange because they're the ones that are changing the rules on us and forcing us out while we're trying to serve our country and be patriots.
In other words, it was a gut wrenching for you reversal of policy, and one that you had an assurance you were going to be accepted and continue to serve.
Exactly.
I wish you good things. I appreciate your willingness to continue. This platform is open to you, so I appreciate your willingness to continue to tell your story because, as I've said to you privately, it's one thing to read it in the newspaper and not to be able to put a face with the ongoing nature of this story. So to bring it home, I think that you do all of us a service. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael, and I will come on anytime you ask. I really want to fight for those that cannot fight for themselves.
Yeah, I think it's horrible. I think it's horrible that after 15 years and the service that you've exhibited and the exemplary record that you have, that you would be told that your service is no longer requested, needed, welcomed. Welcomed. Worse of all.
Right.
Thank you, Joe.
I mean, $18 billion. So, I mean, if you care about costs.
For sure. Thank you, Joe. Joe Ellis,
Thank
ladies
you.
and gentlemen.